A crash in Adani Group stocks wiped out over 55,000 crore rupees from business tycoon Gautam Adani's net worth. Adani Group stocks crashed this morning after reports that the National Securities Depository Limited, or the NSDL, had frozen the accounts of 3 foreign funds that together own shares worth 43,500 crore rupees in 4 Adani Group companies. The Adani Group says that none of the foreign fund accounts have been frozen, calling the reports blatantly erroneous.
The Adani Group stocks wiped out close to 1.3 lakh crore rupees in market capitalization in one day itself. What really happened here? There was bloodbath on the Adani counters. The freezing affected the stocks on the downside. To give you a perspective, the day's lowest on the intraday trading chart for Adani Enterprises was minus 25%. Adani Ports saw the stock fall to the day's low, down 19%. Adani Power, Adani Green Energy, Adani Total Gas and Adani Transmission were down 5% in the day's trading session. The stocks hit their respective lower circuit limits in today's intraday trading session. The reason behind these stocks going into a free fall was after reports that emerged on NSDL freezing demat accounts of 3 foreign portfolio investors. The National Securities Depository Limited reportedly froze accounts of 3 FPIs: Albula Investment Fund, Cresta Fund and APMS Investment Fund. Together they own shares to the tune of 43,500 crore rupees in Adani Total Gas, Adani Transmission, Adani Green Energy and Adani Enterprises. These funds are based out of Mauritius. What is interesting to note here is how all of the Adani counters rallied on the stock markets in the past 1 year, outperforming the benchmark indices. Questions now arising on whether SEBI would probe any price manipulation angle in Adani stocks, given the rally witness of close to 200 to 1,000% in the last 1 year. The Adani Group, in a statement, has dismissed the report of the demat accounts of 3 FPIs being frozen as blatantly erroneous, clarifying that the demat accounts in which the aforesaid funds hold the shares of the company are not frozen. An FPI demat account freeze means that these funds would not be able to sell any of the existing securities or buy any new securities. The report hampered the investor confidence on the Indian bourses given the holding of the 3 FPIs in Adani stocks of 43,500 crore rupees. In New Delhi, Chaiti Narula for India Today.
So the facts aren't fully out in the public domain just yet. The charges are being contested vehemently by the Adani Group. Where does the truth lie? Because what you have is a group of FIIs based out of Mauritius who invest a disproportionately large sum of their corpus in Adani Group companies. In some instances like the Elara India Opportunities Fund, 97% of the investment is in Adani Group companies. In the case of Cresta Fund, 97.40% of the investment has been in Adani Group companies. In the case of APMS investment, 96.18%, Albula investment, 95.40%, Asia Investment Corporation, 35%, LTS investment, 97.47%, Vespara Fund, 98.30% of the investment in companies of the Adani Group. By itself, this isn't a crime, it's not even illegal. However, this does raise questions about why these companies, which have very limited public float, are seeing such huge investments from these FIIs and all the money from those FIIs being invested in the same set of Adani Group companies. And now the action of the NSDL, which has frozen accounts of 3 FPIs, which is again something which the Adani Group is contesting. Joining me for perspective on this broadcast, I'm joined by Jayashree Upadhyay. She's a journalist with The Morning Context, has been reporting on the story closely. We have M.K. Venu, senior journalist. Siddharth Zarabi has been a business editor. Dhirendra Kumar joins us, founder and chief executive of Value Research, which tracks the stock markets very closely. Jayashree Upadhyay, I come to you first. on the back of the story that you put out, we've now seen a statement from the Adani Group which says that they're claiming that the demat accounts of these FPIs haven't been frozen. Is that indeed the case? If that's the case, then there isn't a story. Then why has the Adani Group lost 55,000 crore rupees of market capital? What exactly do we know at this moment? Have these accounts been frozen by the NSDL or not? Because the very basis of the market moving in the way that it did is currently under question itself.
So, of course, Rahul, just to clarify this fact that, of course, this NSDL report of the funds being frozen was coming from the Economic Times in the morning. And that was the basis of why these funds, of the way the Adani Group company shares stand. Now, just to clarify, most of the time when NSDL or these kind of depositories freeze these accounts, it's because there are some deficiencies in the way these funds have, maybe they have not given the proper documentation or KYC documentation. That could be one of the reasons why these funds were blocked. However, now, of course, it's emerging towards the late evening after 3:30, we got to know that Adani Group testing the fact that these funds were not frozen at all. And at least APMS, which are the funds, which was APMS Investment, one of the funds which was frozen, they have clarified that this was a technical freeze, that the funds are still free to move about. So that's the so of course, NSDL would be the best organization to clarify that for you, that whether these funds have been frozen or not. But of course, there is a suspect that whether these funds were frozen or not. However, just to clarify, just to add on to the fact that why these funds, why the group companies and the way the stocks stand, was simply because of the fact that you do not have that much of a free float. Because you do not have that much of a free float, and that is so any kind of a suspect in the way these stocks, any suspect of whether the money is kosher or not, will lead to an impact, and the stocks are more prone to manipulation. And that is one of the reasons why we saw such a huge fall in these shares. And so when we were reporting on the story, we were clear that we saw 7 of these funds, which were year-on-year investing in only Adani Group of companies since 2015. The holding has hardly changed. A slight up or down, hardly you could say that this is material, because if you see the entire run that you saw last year, where the stocks really risen from 2020 to now, you would expect that you would book some profits, or you would just want to exit somewhere, or some other big foreign investor or foreign institutional investor, big institutional domestic investor would come into these stocks, but that has hardly happened. So there is a little bit of a suspect about the way, because actually, to be honest, this is a red flag. For most of the investors, could be a red flag, because why else would a domestic institutional investor, a big insurance company, do not invest in Adani companies when there's such a stupendous rise in the stock prices in the past 1 year?
Okay, so let me just take our viewers through that. Adani Gas is up about 1,080%. This is in market capitalization over the past year. Adani Transmission up about 690%. Adani Group companies in total seeing a huge run up in a lot of their stocks, which raises the question, did the markets overreact, Siddharth Zarabi? What are you making of the suggestion that NSDL has in fact barred 3 of these companies and barred their demat accounts, whereas we haven't actually heard from NSDL, but from the Adani Group we are hearing that this in fact is not true.
Rahul, thank you for having me on the show, and very clearly there are 2 or 3 very important fundamental points. The last point first, it's very clear that in a market as large as India, and especially in the last 14-15 months where we have seen our valuations go up, I would have expected that the stock depository would have come out with a clarification either ways. It's very tough to now fall in the camp whether the story was right or not, and I'm going to skip that for a moment. I believe it is incumbent on the overall market regulatory architecture to clarify such a matter, especially given that there's been such a steep erosion in the value for investors. I think that's a given regardless of whether there is a corporate war, whether it is alphabet A, B, C, D, we don't know that. Now, the broader context of why this debate is very, very significant, and you touched upon it. The last 14-15 months have been stupendous for the Adani Group, and so they have been for the overall Indian stock market. Look at the number of retail investors that have come in. Look at the number of demat accounts that are actively trading at this point. It's been a stupendous year for wealth creation. It's also been a stupendous year for wealth erosion in many stocks, and markets behave like this. As far as the Adani Group goes, 5 stocks, I like to call them the Panch Pandavas really of the Adani Enterprise. It's a power business, it's enterprises, it is gas. There is also what is called Total Gas, in fact, as far as ATG is concerned. The current valuations in many investors' minds are not directly correlated with the fundamentals of the business. And you could argue this for many companies. Before someone from the group or any other expert comes and says, hey guys, why are you singling them out? The fact is there have been equally prominent, eye-popping, surprising increases in market valuations in several stocks. But as far as the Adani Group is concerned, I think there is a larger sort of business framework. Look at their foray into the airports. They got 5 airports. The subsequent award of the another 9 odd airports is stuck. Look at their forays into food and vegetables. Look at gold. They are now very, very significant and large players in the market in multiple sectors, and that has kind of come together in a story where Adani, as far as stock market is concerned, is the most momentum stock on many days. $8 billion of market value increase in the last 12-13 months, and that is not small by even global standards. So there are questions, and there is necessity for the company, for the regulators, and all participants in the market to clarify these important questions. This is not a penny stock. This is the Adani Group, Rahul.
But MK Venu, to be fair to the Adani Group, there is nothing so far to suggest that any of this is being done at the behest of the Adanis. Because if there are foreign portfolio investors who see value in Adani Group companies for whatever reason, and they decide to invest a disproportionate part of their corpus in these companies, that by itself doesn't prove any mala-fide, does it?
Well, Rahul, here, in my view, the problem here is our own stock market governance. I mean, can you imagine, Rahul, this happening, this situation obtaining in any other country, say the US or any other mature market, where a major group, corporate group, a leading corporate group, which has presence across energy, green energy, gas, infrastructure, etc., and a leading market cap company, it loses, its share value collapses by 5 to 7 or 10%. It actually was much worse than it recovered on the basis of an NSDL, a depository statement, which people have found on the website. It was reported from the website. And Rahul, after all this mayhem and after many small shareholders would have lost so much money, there is no statement either from SEBI or from NSDL or any government agency, responsible institution, as to whether the accounts have been frozen or not, because Adani is saying that it's not frozen, and all these action, all these mayhem has happened on the belief that these accounts are frozen. So now, where does that? I mean, how do world investors look at our overall governance? You just tell me. This actually calls for Delhi to actually send a stinker to whichever agency that requires to be sent a stinker to bloody well clarify what the hell is going on. So I'm really astonished that something like this could happen. And Rahul, and in the evening we are still speculating whether NSDL has indeed frozen some of these FII accounts or not. Now it's a fact that these stocks have run up whatever 600%, some companies 1000%, as you said, in the last 1 year. And Rahul, it's also a fact, I must remind you here, that last 2020 February, the SEBI had made a statement that it is going to monitor much more closely tax havens like Mauritius and the kind of flows that are coming from there, and the monitoring in terms of looking at the end beneficiaries of these accounts that are investing through FIIs. And Rahul, mind you, this is also within the broader framework of the if you remember the G20 agreement where our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, was actually very much in the forefront of, right? So this broader framework, the broader macro picture of India being part of this greater transparency of capital flows, especially in stock markets through FIIs, and being more transparent with also trying to figure out who are the real investors behind these FIIs. All these are big questions which require an answer, Rahul, and I don't see these questions being answered at all, much less we don't even now know whether the accounts are frozen or not. I mean, this is
Virendra Kumar, what are you making of this entire report? Because I was going through the bylaws of the NSDL and evaluating the circumstances under which accounts can be frozen. So bylaw 9.3.4 says the depository shall on its own freeze the participant's account, and they've given a whole bunch of conditions. One of which is if the central or state government orders it, the SEBI orders it, or some court or tribunal orders it. And then it goes on to say on the basis of orders passed by the Disciplinary Action Committee as set out in Chapter 11 of the bylaws. And then when you look at what those bylaws are and what can the Disciplinary Action Committee do under Chapter 11, it says suspension of a participant, expulsion of a participant, declaring a security as ineligible, freezing the account of the participant, which is what is supposed to have happened in this instance. How do you think we should go about unraveling whether or not this has happened and what should happen from here?
No, one is that, we should get this is actually a failure of the market regulatory infrastructure. There should be an instant verifiability because all these information should be, we have actually become far more transparent. If I have, ever since this thing happened, I looked at all the information that we get as part of, public disclosure of the portfolios. So, you have more than 1% holding. So some of these companies, which I read in the newspaper, that they're only investors in Adani companies, they are not. They have a bunch of other companies in which they have invested. Larger scale of investment. I was looking at, the Indian funds, their exposure to these companies. It is not much. The actively managed fund, they don't invest. They don't have sizable exposure here. But I think it's, entirely our ability to look at, because in a market, a bunch of stock which has gone up by 10 times, 8 times, 6 times in the last 1 year. Of course, the market has been going up dramatically, but this has been more than dramatic. And over and above this, such kind of stocks going up in a hurry, they are looking for an excuse to fall. And there is a general distrust in the market when you have a news which comes out, which doesn't smell good. People will run for cover if they have made good money in recent past. So good time for speculation, and I don't think there is anything unusual. Many high quality stocks, they go down on the whiff of a rumor, or we have seen in recent past itself. But this is lack of more of a regulatory infrastructure failure.
You're right, because you can't have a situation where so much investor wealth and valuation of the Adani Group stocks gets hit without knowing whether the charge itself is to have these funds been frozen.
Yeah.
Was there wrongdoing? What was that wrongdoing? It needs to be established. It cannot be done in the manner in which it has. The jury is out at this moment. I don't want to condemn or pronounce any guilt because we don't know the facts. The least that's expected from the NSDL, the SEBI, possibly even the finance ministry, if the NSDL doesn't do it itself, is for a complete disclosure on what actions have been taken, why is it had been taken. That will also determine what happens in the markets tomorrow. For the time being, Siddharth Zarabi, Jayashree, MK Venu and Dhirendra, thank you very much for joining us. We will come back to you for more once we have more specific details about the story. What we saw though was a bloodbath in the stock markets when it came to the Adani counters today. Let's move on to our other big story. A major controversy has come to the fore in the Ayodhya Ram Mandir land dispute case. The AAP and the Samajwadi Party have alleged that a piece of land which was bought for 2 crore rupees from its owners was sold to the Ram Janmabhoomi Trust for 18.5 crore rupees. All this happened within a span of minutes, quite literally. The Ram Temple Trust has denied these charges. Kumar Abhishek with this story.
Yeah, guys. 2 crores to 18.5 crores in a matter of minutes. A staggering 825% profit in just 600 seconds for the seller. This is what the opposition has alleged happened in an Ayodhya land purchase by the Ram Janmabhoomi Trust.
भगवान राम के मंदिर बनाने के लिए चंदा देने वाले लोगों के साथ विश्वासघात किया जा रहा है, तब दुख होता है। 5 मिनट के अंदर अंदर हरीश पाठक और कुसुम पाठक ने 7:10 पे ये जमीन रवि मोहन तिवारी और अंसारी जी को बेची 2 करोड़ रुपए में, और 2 करोड़ रुपए की ये जमीन रवि मोहन तिवारी और सुल्तान अंसारी साहब ने बेच दी 18 करोड़ 18.5 करोड़ रुपए में राम जन्मभूमि में मंदिर बनाने के नाम पे।
What makes the deal murky is the allegation that there was only a difference of 10 minutes in signing both deals. Trust members Anil Mishra and Ayodhya Mayor Rishikesh Upadhyay are listed as witnesses in the two deals.
यही वो जमीन है जिस पर इतना हंगामा बरपा है। दरअसल ये जमीन कुसुम पाठक के नाम पर थी और जिसे रवि तिवारी और सुल्तान अंसारी के नाम से अग्रीमेंट कुछ साल पहले किया गया था, और उसी जमीन को अब न सिर्फ उसका रजिस्ट्री कराई गई बल्कि इसी जमीन को राम जन्मभूमि तीर्थ क्षेत्र ट्रस्ट ने फिलहाल उसका अग्रीमेंट करा लिया है।
The opposition is asking who's the actual beneficiary of 16 crore rupees profit made in this land deal. Sultan Ansari, the man who bought the land initially and sold it minutes later to the trust, wasn't home when the India Today team reached his residence in Suhati village.
ये बीच बहती गांव में एक आलीशान बंगला, एक आलीशान घर आप देख पा रहे हैं। ऐसा लगता है देख के कि काफ़ी ज़्यादा बड़े अमाउंट में इसको बनाया गया है, और तस्वीरें आप देखिए। आज तक ग्राउंड जीरो पर आया है पड़ताल करने को। मैं आपको अंदर भी ले चलूँगा। काफ़ी नया न्यूली बिल्ड घर नज़र आता है। ऊपर टेरेस भी आप देख पाएंगे यहाँ पर, और छत भी पड़ी हुई है। दरवाजे आपको देखेंगे नए हैं, कूलर नया लगा है। ऐसा लगता है कि सब कुछ अभी तुरंत हुआ है, ऐसा भी हम कह सकते हैं। शायद एक मुट्ठी इनको पैसा एक मुश्त मिला है, जिसके बाद ये सब चीज़ें बनाई गई हैं।
The Ayodhya Temple Trust has denied any wrongdoing in the land deals.
हमको आरोप लगते ही रहते हैं। मैं 100 साल से आरोप ही देख रहे हैं। हम लोग हम पर महात्मा गांधी की हत्या के आरोप लगे। आरोप से हम चिंता नहीं करते। आप भी चिंता मत करिए, आप खूब लगाइए। यू आर यस आई एक्सेप्ट, आई रेडी, यू आल्सो, यू डू इट। आप अपना काम करिए, हम अपना काम करेंगे।
देखिए, श्री राम जन्मभूमि तीर्थ क्षेत्र ट्रस्ट ने प्रेस रिलीज जारी कर दी है। वह ज़मीन उन्होंने दर्शाया है कि वो वर्षों पूर्व उनके अनुबंध की ज़मीन थी। वो ट्रस्ट प्रेस विज्ञप्ति भी जारी किया है और आज उसको क्लियर भी करेगा कि कब की उनकी ज़मीन है। तो राजनीतिक लोगों ने इसको उठाया है और अनावश्यक इसमें तिल का ताड़ करें, दूध का दूध पानी का पानी, वो क्लियर हो जाएगा।
The BJP is treading cautiously as the issue has snowballed into a political scandal.
देखिए, जिनके हाथ राम भक्तों के खून से रंगे हैं वो सलाह न दें। अगर कोई किसी ने भी गड़बड़ किया होगा, ट्रस्ट उसकी जांच करेगा और जो दोषी होंगे उनके खिलाफ कार्रवाई होगी। और रामलला का भव्य मंदिर निर्माण का काम चल रहा है, भव्य मंदिर का निर्माण का कार्य होगा।
With the Ayodhya temple once again in the spotlight, old allies, the BJP and the Shiv Sena, are once again at loggerheads.
राम मंदिर के नाम पर पूरे देश में चंदा भी जमा किया, घर घर में जाकर। उसके ऊपर भी बहुत ही क्रिटिसाइज हुआ था। हमने आपके ऊपर विश्वास रखा है कि प्रभु श्री राम की मंदिर के नाम पर, आस्था के नाम पर एक पैसे का भी घोटाला न हो सके। लेकिन जो लैंड का मामला सामने आया है, उससे हमारी श्रद्धा को भी ठेस पहुंची। लेकिन जो जानकारी सामने आई है, मुझे लगता है गड़बड़ है।
शिवसेना दल राम मंदिर और हिंदुत्व के बारे में बोलने के लिए वे अपना नैतिक अधिकार खो चुके हैं। क्या अधिकार है उनको हिंदुत्व के बारे में बोलने का? कांग्रेस दल ने 22 वकीलों की फौज देश के उच्च न्यायपालिका में लगाई थी ताकि राम मंदिर का फैसला तुरंत न आए, देरी से आए। उस कांग्रेस के साथ शिवसेना सत्ता साझा करती है।
A mandir in the name of Lord Ram, the Maryada Purushottam King, is now caught in an unsavory scandal. The charges of financial irregularities have cast a shadow on the Ayodhya Temple Trust, which has raised over 3,200 crore rupees till March the 31st for the construction of the temple. With Kumar Abhishek and Samarth Srivastav in Ayodhya, Bureau Report, India Today.
As the Supreme Court hears petitions seeking an SIT probe into the poll violence in Bengal, several intervention pleas have been moved by women who were allegedly attacked by groups of TMC workers and raped. 3 separate applications have been filed in the Supreme Court seeking an SIT investigation into this alleged sexual violence.
Violence, vandalism, arson. The eruption was instantaneous. Just minutes after Mamata's huge victory in Bengal, these were the scenes in the state. Amidst the violence, allegations of sexual violence and gang rape also erupted. Allegations that quickly sank amidst a ferocious war of words between the victorious Trinamool and the new opposition BJP. And now, over a month later, fresh, horrific details of alleged gang rape have emerged. With multiple women from Bengal, including a minor girl, moving Supreme Court, seeking a detailed probe into what they call a wave of revenge rape by the ruling party.
As the Supreme Court is looking into the issue of post-poll violence in West Bengal, a chorus of complaints has come up regarding allegations of sexual assault by people who are said to be TMC workers. At least 3 applications have been filed in the Supreme Court by women claiming to have been victims of such rape and gang rape by TMC workers, as their family members support the opposition party.
Last month, when separate but similar allegations had emerged, the Trinamool and the Bengal police had dismissed them outright, calling some of them even fake. One of the new applicants, a 60-year-old woman, has detailed horrors starting the 3rd of May, saying her house was surrounded by a large mob of Trinamool supporters and loud threats hurled at her, asking her family to leave the house. She says her daughter-in-law was mercilessly beaten. At midnight, 5 Trinamool workers forced their way in, slapped, beat and tied her to her bed and gang raped her in front of her 6-year-old grandson. A separate plea alleges that a group of 4 men dragged 2 girls into a nearby jungle where they assaulted the 17-year-old and raped them one by one for more than an hour. The plea states that they were attacked and gang raped solely for their families' political affiliations and religious beliefs. In her plea before the Supreme Court, the 17-year-old alleges that she was sent to a child welfare home and wasn't allowed to meet her family. Similar allegations have been made in a plea by a 19-year-old woman. The petitions have sought transfer of the investigation in their cases to a special investigation team to be conducted outside Bengal.
See, the girls need to come out. The girls need to say. If the girls fear to come out, then we can't make up the story, because people will say that we have made up the stories. So that is where we are lacking.
There is such existence of any litigation which is sub judice. It is not proper to make any comment thereon, because the Honorable Supreme Court is dealing with that matter.
The Bengal government on May 25th had informed the court that a 5-judge bench of the Calcutta High Court had already taken cognizance of the issue and was hearing pleas for an SIT investigation. The state government also claimed that FIRs had been registered and arrests had begun to be made. However, the National Human Rights Commission had informed the court that an internal report had been filed by its committee which indicated that there were serious violations of human rights. The matter is expected to be heard by the Supreme Court on Tuesday. With Anisha Mathur, Bureau Report, India Today.
Past 4 decades, the India Today Group has been the gold standard of journalism in India. During this glorious journey, some of the sharpest, finest journalists and editors have been part of the India Today family. Today, we are delighted to welcome on board the best known, most respected financial journalist in the country, Udayan Mukherjee. Udayan, welcome to the India Today Group.
Rahul, hi, and thank you very much for welcoming me into the India Today family. I'm really delighted to be part of your network now. I mean, I've always known what an extensive and enormous reach your brands like India Today, Business Today, and TV Today have. I mean, with millions of Indians. And I really am looking forward to the opportunity of reaching out to them and engaging with them in a small but meaningful way. So it's a great opportunity for me. And the times are such that over the last 1 year or so, everything's been turned on its head. And that presents a unique opportunity for people in the field of business such as me. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of adding something small to your fairly formidable fold, maybe a small feather to your cap.
And we're delighted to have you on board. You'd said goodbye to TV news in 2013. So what's made you decide to come back after all these years?
Well, you know, in 2013, I had almost 18 or 20 years of the daily grind, and that was enough for me. So I stepped away from that daily role, but continued to be on the margins, lingering as a commentator for many years. And then last year, while in the midst of COVID, I decided to end that as well. The whole world of business has been turned on its head. I mean, business is not going to be the same again after COVID. And everybody from business houses to policymakers, they have to look at the world through a very different lens. And for people who are observers of the business world, like I have been for over 2 decades, I think it presents a different kind of a challenge. And therefore, after 1 year of being in the wilderness and essentially being homebound, I thought it would be a good opportunity to engage with the business world from a different perspective, from a different lens once again. Because, you know, it's a once in a lifetime kind of a situation and crisis which is unfolding in front of us. I mean, you are reporting about it from one angle, but my domain is the world of business and financial markets. And I can't tell you how dramatically everything has changed over the last 1 year for all of that. So I'm quite looking forward to donning my hat once again, but from a very different lens and from a very different point of view from what I have done over the last 20 years.
What's your sense of the emerging post-COVID business landscape, and what should the viewers of India Today expect from Udayan Mukherjee?
Well, you know, Rahul, in short, everything has changed. I mean, businessmen don't look at plans and investments and the future in quite the same light as they might have done even 1 year back. I mean, the linear trajectory of every kind of plan is over. I mean, that's never going to be the same again. Equally, I mean, if you look at the whole policy landscape, I mean, for policymakers, everything has changed completely. Everybody's trying to see how economies can be revived, how people can be helped, and while doing all of this, how to keep the beast of inflation tamed, because that can really rear its head and destroy everything once again very quickly. So for business people and for policymakers, everything has changed. But I think one very crucial thing, Rahul, which has also changed, is the very audience who watches you and I. That business audience has changed quite completely. I mean, we were used to having people in their 40s and 50s and 60s consuming business media. But today's generation who are watching Business Today and TV Today and India Today and reading them, they are actually younger. They are in their 20s and 30s. Many people who are investors in the stock market are doing it for the first time. So not only are we at the intersection of very powerful changes in the business and policy landscape, I think our very customers, people who consume media, that has undergone a sea change over the last year and a half. And I think all of us have to really rethink this landscape while talking to them. And I look forward to that as a really special kind of challenge.
You know, and how can I chat with Udayan Mukherjee and not ask him about the stock markets? What's your sense of where the markets are going from here? You were the original face of the first bull run. And now we're at a zone where people are saying, say, 200,000 could be possible in time to come. How are you seeing the markets and what's your reading?
Well, it's a strange time, Rahul, to be talking about the markets. And I never say never because, you know, much that I say I don't want to talk about the stock market as much or as often as I did before. I mean, I can't take myself away from the stock market. It's in my blood. I mean, it's what I know best. And it's a strange feeling to be seeing the stock market hitting new highs every day, even as in the midst of so much misery and what everybody's experiencing in their daily lives, the loss of lives and livelihoods. And in a sense, it is quite perverse. I mean, you know, I've always known that the stock market is a bit of a soulless institution. And I think that has come to the fore over the last 1 year or so. But the market will do its own thing. I mean, it has no sympathy for what is going on in the other world. And what is happening right now is that we've got a K-shaped kind of a recovery going across the world and in India. The tall are getting taller, the strong are getting stronger, and the small are shriveling and shrinking in front of our eyes. It's not a good thing. I mean, no one can say it's a good thing, but hey, it's what it is. I mean, you've got to accept it. It's the law of the jungle as it is with the stock market. So, I mean, if you were to ask me, is the stock market headed higher from here? There are very cogent arguments in favor of that, because the stock market always thinks about the future, discounts the future. And the stock market is trying to look 6 months, 12 months ahead and suggesting that maybe in India and in the world we'll have a very powerful recovery once everyone is vaccinated. Equally, if the stock market were to crash tomorrow, there would be very cogent arguments for that. Everybody will turn around and say, we told you, stock market is living in a different planet, valuations were crazy, and how can you have the stock market going up when the economy is collapsing? So, you know, it's a bit like post facto kind of analysis. There are equally strong arguments for a strong market and a weak market, and that's the kind of challenge that I will be peering into when I appear on your channels and write for your magazines.
Well, we don't want to give away too much just yet. What we want to tell all our viewers is watch this space for more. We're very excited. We've got big plans, and you'll see them play themselves out across the India Today group in the days and weeks to come. Udayan, welcome, and it's great to have you on board.
Thank you very much. I really look forward to the opportunity.